Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Teach and Talk. I am your host, Omar, and I am so grateful to have you here with me today. First of all, I want to say a huge thank you for the response to the last episode. We talked about passion, about finding that connection between what you love, like anime or video games, and the language you are learning. If you haven't listened to that one, I highly recommend you go back and check it out because it sets the foundation for everything we do here. But today we are going to navigate into darker waters. We are going to talk about the monster. We are going to talk about the single biggest obstacle that stops people from becoming fluent. It's not grammar, it's not vocabulary, it's not a lack of time. It is fear. Specifically, the fear of making mistakes, the fear of sounding stupid, the fear of being wrong. Today, we are going to dismantle that fear. We are going to look at it through the lens of my personal experience, but also through the lens of science and pedagogy. By the end of this episode, I hope to convince you that making mistakes is not just okay. It is absolutely necessary. Let's start with the personal side of things. Let me take you back a few years to when I was just starting to take English seriously. I remember sitting in a classroom. The teacher asked a question. I knew the answer. In my head, the sentence was perfect. Subject, verb, complement. Everything was ready. But then I looked around the room. I saw the other students, and a toxic thought froze me. What if I pronounce it wrong? What if I use the wrong verb tense? What if they laugh? My heart started beating fast. Boom, boom. My hands got sweaty. And do you know what I did? I stayed silent. I looked down at my notebook, and I didn't say a word. Has this happened to you? Maybe you see a tourist in the street who needs help, or you are in a call with a native speaker and you freeze, not because you don't know the language, but because you are terrified of breaking it. We treat language like it's a fragile glass vase. We think that if we drop it, if we make a mistake, it shatters and we are failures. But this mindset is completely wrong. And I learned this lesson not in a classroom, but on a soccer field. As I've told you before, I used to play a lot of soccer. Think about this. When you are learning to play soccer and you want to learn a new dribble or a new way to kick the ball, do you get it right the first time? Never. You trip over the ball, you kick it out of bounds, you miss the goal completely. Now imagine if your coach came over after you missed the goal once and said, "Okay, that's it. You are bad at soccer. Sit down. Never try again." That sounds ridiculous, right? In sports, we accept that missing the goal is part of the training. Yet in language learning, we treat one grammar mistake as a tragedy. Why? This brings me to a serious point about education. This is where my background in pedagogy comes in. Why are we so afraid? The answer lies in how we were raised in the school system. In traditional education, and I see this in my studies of general basic education, mistakes are strictly penalized. If you write 2 plus 2 equals 5 on a math test, you get a big red X. If you misspell a word in a dictation, points are subtracted from your final grade. We have been conditioned for 12 or 15 years to believe that mistakes equal punishment. We have been trained to believe that accuracy is the only thing that matters. So when we try to speak English as adults, we are carrying that heavy backpack from school. We are subconsciously waiting for the red pen. We are waiting for the bad grade. But here is the truth. A language is not a math test. A language is a river. It flows, it changes, and it's messy. You cannot learn to swim without getting wet, and you cannot learn to speak without saying things incorrectly. Now let's get scientific. Let's look at what pedagogy says about this. I want to introduce you to two very important concepts today that will change how you view your errors. The first concept is called interlanguage. This term was coined by a linguist named Larry Selinker. It refers to the version of the language that a learner speaks. It's not your native language, Spanish, and it's not the target language, English. It is a separate linguistic system in the middle. When you say, I goed to the park, instead of I went to the park, you are not being stupid. You are using your interlanguage. Your brain is applying a rule, adding ed for the past tense, and testing it. In pedagogy, we view this not as an error, but a hypothesis. Your brain is a scientist. It says, I think the past tense is made by adding ed. Let me test this theory. If you never speak, your brain never gets to test its hypothesis. It never gets the feedback to say, wait, goad is irregular. Okay, I will update my internal software. So please understand this. Mistakes are not failures. Mistakes are data. They are evidence that your brain is working and processing the language. The second concept I want to talk about is the affective filter. This comes from a famous linguist, Stephen Krashen. Imagine a wall between you and the new language. If you are stressed, anxious, or afraid of making mistakes, that wall goes up. It becomes a high wall. The language hits the wall and bounces off. You can't learn effectively because your anxiety is blocking the input. But if you are relaxed, if you are laughing, if you feel safe to make mistakes, the wall comes down. The filter is low, and the language goes straight into your brain. So ironically, by worrying so much about being perfect, you are raising your affective filter and making it harder for your brain to learn. You are sabotaging yourself. So what do we do with this information? How do we apply this to our lives right now? I want you to change your goal. Stop trying to speak correct English. Start trying to speak communicative English. If you say, I have hunger instead of I am hungry, guess what? The other person understood you. Mission accomplished. Communication happened. That is a success, not a failure. I want to invite you to be like a child again. Have you ever listened to a 3-year-old learn Spanish? They say things like no sabo instead of no sé. Do the parents scold them? No. They smile, they gently correct them, and the child keeps talking. The child has no shame. The child has no fear. And that is why children learn so fast. We need to reclaim that bravery. In my own journey, combining my English practice with my interest in things like anime or drawing helped me lower that affective filter. When I'm sketching a drawing and listening to a video, I'm relaxed. If I don't understand a word or if I repeat a word incorrectly, I don't panic. I'm enjoying the process. Now you might be asking, okay, Omar, I accept that mistakes are good. I lowered my wall. But how do I actually get better? How do I move from I goed to I went? You need the right kind of material. You need to feed your brain the right fuel so it can self-correct naturally over time. This leads us directly to the topic of our next episode, episode 4. Next time, we are going to talk about the most important concept in language acquisition theory. It's the answer to how we actually improve. It is called comprehensible input. We are going to explore why traditional studying, like memorizing grammar tables, often fails, and why listening to and reading things you actually understand is the magic key to fluency. We will talk about how to find content that is perfect for your level. Not too hard, not too easy, but just right. It is a fascinating topic, and it is the core of how I learned. But for today, I want to leave you with a challenge. In the next few days, I want you to make a mistake intentionally. Go to a forum, write a comment in English, talk to yourself, record a voice note. And if you make a grammar error, instead of feeling bad, I want you to high-five yourself. Celebrate it. Say, great, that is my interlanguage working. I am testing a hypothesis. Be messy, be brave, and remember, the only real mistake is to stay silent. Thank you so much for listening to this deeper dive on Teach and Talk. As I mentioned before, I am not a professional video editor. I'm just a guy from Upala sharing his journey and his studies, so I really appreciate your patience. Please subscribe if you haven't, and share this with someone who is afraid of speaking English. I'm Omar, and I'll see you in Episode 4